Welcome to Talks with Adri. Today we're going to talk about the great fall in consciousness for humanity. This is a topic that has been discussed in many religions, and it had just turned out into something like dark and fearful, and that is definitely not what we want to talk about. We want to talk about I wouldn't say the real, because remember that we still need to prove it in another ways, but I want to talk about what other sources say. In the previous episodes, we talk about Atlantis and this mighty civilization that existed, that was so connected with the source, where everything was sacred, where everything was marvelous, and that we were the product of the genetic modification, but at the same time of the consciousness of the Pleiadians, of the Arcturians, of the people of the stars that were invited by the Galactic Council. And this experiment was working very well for 1,500 years. But later, unfortunately, this experiment started falling down, and the people couldn't maintain their high level of consciousness, and something happened on Earth. So that is exactly what we're going to talk about. Of a ram comes from the Greek mythology, and it was the god that liked the parties and liked to do different things, ways out, instead of going back to the source. Also, the trident that you see here is taken from the Greek god Poseidon, because he was the god of the seas. And remember that he was like the one that took many of the people to Atlantis, because he was really committed to make the people develop their soul, to let the people know that we have a past in the stars and that we are connected to it. And this is very recent. The character itself didn't exist until the Middle Ages. This character that we see here also had the bat wings, because they wanted to say that all the gods that came from the Mayans and from the Toltecs also were bad. So it was a campaign to basically destroy the previous gods, or like the paganism from ancient civilizations. Actually, the word Lucifer comes from the Latin word lucero, which means morning star, and it refers to the planet Venus, that it is the first star that appears in the morning, and it was said in the Greek mythology that it was the son of the dawn, of the son of Aurora, which means when the sun goes down, and then we have this bright star, and that it appears before the sun. So the myth says that it was a star that wanted to become like the sun, like Zeus, like God. It's a star that wants to become like God. But it was such a precious star, such a beautiful, but this is a myth that comes from Greek. So with all of this story, what I want to say is that basically the devil as an image doesn't exist. It was created to seed fear in the people and to make them believe something, to be fearful, like if you don't do this in the way that I'm telling you, then you're going to be punished by this being, that it is a fake invention. What we do have is the differentiation between right and wrong, the discernment that we have in each of us, that inside of us we have the two wolves. The white wolf that is good and wants to do the things right, and it's loving and everything, and we have the dark wolf that is the one that wants us to, like the ego, no? That talks to us and says, no, you're doing it wrong, you can do it another way, take advantage. And the one that you feed, the energy that you put in one of the sides, is what you're going to become. But we inside, because we live in a world of duality, have the potentiality of feeding both, any of these wolves, and we can be as good as bad in the different moments. So that is what we're going to talk about today. That is what we call the Lucifer experiment. The Lucifer experiment is, if you remember in the previous episode, that we have the sphere, right? We have the sphere in the middle, and then we have the possibility to see in different perspectives. And when we are able to see from the 360 perspectives of degrees, the totality, and we remain in our center, is when we can complete our evolution and pass to the next step. One of the perspectives is the perspective of the duality. The perspective of what happened here is when the self decided to disconnect from the source. When we disconnect from the source, and spirit can do it because it is also God, any spirit, any of us can do it, any civilization, any species can do it, because we are creators inside, and we say one day, okay, I'm going to do my evolution by myself. I'm not going to be connected with God. And in that moment, when that is your decision, you stop seeing the world as one. So we change the perspective of oneness, of being connected with everybody through unconditional love, to a perspective of duality. So you are there, I am here, I have nothing to do with you, you have nothing to do with me. And this is the disconnection. When we perceive the reality with the eyes of duality, of black and white, of myself being isolated from the rest. So when we are in the unity consciousness, how the universe works, we prefer the collective well-being. When we are in the Lucifer experiment or in this disconnection, we are going to give more priority to the self. The things are going to be because what is my benefit? I'm not looking for the collective benefit. Actually, what I'm describing right now, it is, for me, in my experience, we are so disconnected, we are so left brain that everything that I'm going to read in the right side, what it is in red, describes our world. And for us, it's so difficult to understand the unity consciousness because we are disconnected. So it is something that we don't live. The second point, the equanimity. We want, when you are connected with the source, when you are connected with nature and with everything that it is alive, we know that we are all in the same level. We respect everybody and every little living being, and we know that they have their own purpose, as important as my purpose. Instead, when we are disconnected, we have a fake illusion of superiority. So I am more than this person because I have more education, or because I am from a different race, or because I am from a better country, or because I have more money, but I make differentiations, and in these differentiations I create a complex of superiority. I am more important because I am older, I am more important because I am a boss, or it can be also of inferiority. When you live in any of the polarities of superiority or inferiority, you are in the left brain side, you are in the Lucifer experiment side, you are not in the unity consciousness, because for the unity consciousness we are all the same, as important. And that is why missing my side, or that any of the group of the living creatures that are around me don't do their part, alters the balance of everything. So the bees, the mosquitoes, everything is very important. Humbleness. Humbleness is very important, as I was mentioning, because it has to do with this equanimity, connection with everything, different from the side of pride. No, like I am guided by my pride, and I have to build my image and to build my personality, feeding it with territorialism, for example, this is mine, and with greed, I want everything for me, and I want to be the best. For example, why are you studying medicine? Because do you want to help the people, will be under the unconditional love model, or because you want to be the best doctor, and they will be with the ego model, instead of humbleness, being guided by pride. The next thing is the losing the part of being the creators. When we are connected with the unity consciousness, we know that we are part of God, that God is inside us, and that we are in this physical condition in order to create, to perform something. It's a way in which the creation manifests to continue evolving, and that is my purpose. When I am disconnected, what is going to happen is that I'm going to envy God, envy others, why they can do it, why they can fly, why they can have, why they can do, because I don't feel connected. I don't understand that their benefit is also my benefit and my own purpose. So I completely lose that power of manifestation because I don't believe that I have it. When I am connected with the source, I am connected with everything. When I am disconnected, then I become a jealous person. So we're going to see that the disconnection makes us fall in all the 7 sins that many persons mention them, for example, in the Catholicism. What happened is that when I disconnect, I lost my connection and my understanding of everything. My perception is only duality, where I am isolated from the rest and I want to survive by myself alone. I don't care about the others. And this had happened many times in the universe. Let's say that we are not the only species that it is facing this world of duality or the left brain perception. And when it had happened before in the universe, they already know the consequences. The consequences is that we become so greedy, that the being becomes so greedy, so focused on themselves, that they start fighting with the ones of their own species. Because this is mine, no, it's mine. I want it in this way, no, I want it in this way. We try to control, and then we end up fighting instead of cooperating. So we basically self-destroy our species and the environment. This is very important that you have to have it into account, because it happened before to a different species, and it is what our world is living right now. So this is what we call the Lucifer experiment, being disconnected from the source and perceiving a different reality, an illusion. So what happened in Atlantean times? Why it is important for us now? So the story goes like this. Matías de Stefano, Diana Cooper, Drunvalo Melchizedek, the Emerald Tablets, Spirit Signs are going to tell us the story that I'm about to tell you. There was a planet, Mars, our neighbor, that it was beautiful and it had plenty of life, the same as Mother Earth right now. But the beings inside were very oriented in the left brain side. So they were disconnected from the source. These beings were very advanced and evolved in technology. So they decide to disconnect from the source and continue their evolution, creating a synthetic Merkaba, rather than to have a Merkaba guided by the evolution. And when they activate this Merkaba, what happened is that they completely destroy their planet, killing all the parts of life, and they have to basically go and move to another planet, the few beings that survived. I'm going to make a parenthesis here to explain what is a Merkaba. The Merkaba is the body of light that you can create when you are aligned with the source. Let's say a natural Merkaba is something that here humans we can reach when we go through meditation, when we live with unconditional love, and when we are in service to the others. If you are capable of developing these skills of meditation, of really vibrate connected with the others instead of being guided by your own desires, and being service to others, your energy shifts. You create an electromagnetic field around you that it is in the shape of a tetrahedron, and that's why I'm putting here this star, the David star. This is the mathematics, the sacred geometry behind it. But it has to do a lot with your feeling and with your unconditional love, with your heart, with your love. So you create this electromagnetic field around you, and then the prana, the energy that you receive from your crown chakra until the soul star, until the chakras that are below your feet, is completely connected to the source. And at that moment, you are able to tap into the Akashic records, and you're able to tap into the wisdom of the universe. This is basically what we call the illumination process, for example, in Buddhism, or what we call awakening. So this doesn't happen in one lifetime, or it requires an evolution of the self, of the soul, to open the Antakarana bridge, or to open this space of activate your Merkaba. For this you have to work, and you have to feel love inside. But the Martians did it without love. And because it was made without love, it was fake. So they had the knowledge and the technology to create the electromagnetic field, and they had the secret geometry, and they had everything, but they lacked of love. So the experiment didn't work, and they completely destroyed their planet. Because they destroyed their planet, they took advantage of what was happening in Mother Earth at that time. And here I want to recall that the Galactic Council invited many different beings from the stars to come to Mother Earth. They opened the portals in Atlantis to see if they wanted to incarnate and be part of the experiment that the Galactic Council was doing, that was, if you are a person from the start, evolved and everything, what happens if you receive a physical body, and if you pass through the veil of amnesia and that you forget what was your past? What happens if you live here? Do you stay connected with the source, or you don't? That was what the Galactic Council was doing here, and they invited many souls, many beings, and they came, and the portal was open. So the Martians, with all this that was happening, entered in the same way that the Anunnaki entered 65,000 years ago, and they stayed. Actually, they are still among us, or we are already them, because remember that we all breathe with everything. We also carry in our blood their genetic information. And they found, when they arrived, the Lemurians. The Lemurians were like this picture that I show here. Let me see that you can see the Lemurian that I find out that I have here. The Lemurians were people that were really more female oriented, or more right brain oriented. They were coming from Lemuria, from this place where they were connected with everything. They are going to incarnate in the Atlantis civilization, where everything was guided by the Pleiadians, that were the muse of the inspiration, of the arts, of the music. They are going to find the Arcturians, that were also developed by the science connected with the source, with the science that had to do with the biology of the things, of nature, of understanding your environment, what are you made of. So they were coming from this perspective of completely right brain society, living on unconditional love, connected with everything, having a high respect for all what it was, considering that everything was sacred. And then these guys come, and from 65,000 years, wanting to control and influencing the society. Just to give you an example, the Spanish arrived to America, and for 500 years of influence, the people in these territories are completely Spanish. Not only because we are mixed with our blood, but also because we speak Spanish, we adopt the religion, we eat what they ate in Europe at that time. So the influence was very big. Imagine the influence of a species that arrives and stays for more than 65,000 years. So what started happening in Atlantis is that the experiment that created the Galactic Council is starting losing their high vibration, because these beings started influencing the whole society. The Martians arrived into planet Earth, and the first thing that they tried to do was take control, but they were less. The Atlanteans were more people, so they just couldn't enter and do it in one time. Nevertheless, they were very intelligent and everything, and they started persuading the people, especially in the hierarchies, in the high levels. The priestesses, remember that in Atlantean times, religion and government was one. And they show them, they say, why do you care about the collective? Why are you in service of all? For example, in the big pool that they had a pool that it was in the Poseidon temple, in the middle of the city of Atlantis, of the main city. And everybody could go there to just have a bath of purity, of sacred codes, of wonderful energy, and they came out of there completely renovated. It was not only healing, but also uplifting, and it helped you to rise your consciousness. And all this was guided by the priests and priestesses. Why are you going to use this in service of all if you can use it for your own purpose? You can continue growing and evolving and growing in consciousness, and then you're going to be able to differentiate yourself from the rest. So they started shifting and changing the perception of unity to the perception of duality. And this started penetrating especially the high hierarchies, the government, the spirituality, and later, because these were the people in charge of all the connections, of all the Christ consciousness, or of the earth's greed. When they started doing this, affecting the greed, the consciousness, it started shifting the whole society from a right brain society to a left brain society. Their influence started changing and shifting, and from that moment, the high vibration of Atlantis started going down and going down. So Atlantis was an experiment that started 26,000 years ago, and that for 1,500 years it was wonderful, magnificent, and it is what it is written in on the tales of Plato and in the myths of the Mayans, of the Toltecs. But later it started decaying due to the arrival of this new species. And between 16,000 to 13,000 years ago, this has not been confirmed, the date or the time has not been well confirmed by the science. Nevertheless, the science have proofs that this happened. NASA is proven by NASA, and it is also proven by the Russian Academy, that a comet crashed with Earth. Many of the pieces fell down in the Atlantic Ocean, and especially in the United States at the part of North Carolina. There are parts where you can see where this meteorite impacted Mother Earth, and it affected the territory of the Martians. When the comet was coming, because this civilization was so advanced, they saw that this was going to happen. The Martians said, we have the technology to destroy the comet before it reaches Earth. And we have to do it, because if not, we are going to suffer, we are going to be affected. Especially because the Martians already lived in fear. Remember that they have the past, that they already damaged their own planet. So they knew like a catastrophe like this could really provoke. So they wanted to avoid it at any cost. In the other side, the Galactic Council, the Nacals, if we remember the name of the people in Atlantis that were like in the higher levels, the Nacals say, no, this is according to the precious order. This should happen. If this is going to impact Earth, there is a purpose, there is a higher purpose with this, so we need to allow this to happen. And it did happen. The Martians didn't act because of the persuasion of the Galactic Council. But they were super upset and super pissed off, we can say, because it really affected their territories. So they say no more, we are not going to be under the rule of the Galactic Council anymore, we are going to take control of this planet. And after that happened, in order to create the control that they wanted to do, there is a consciousness grid around the planet Earth. There are some lines that go and that have the energy, have the information of all the evolution of the humans around Earth. And there is a consciousness grid for every species, as we saw some episodes before. For humanity, whatever we reach peaks are stored here and are going to be distributed for every person. So remember when we say that when we create fire, we reach a step on evolution, and then when we discover agriculture, we reach another step on evolution, and then it started appearing in many different places around Mother Earth, and it doesn't have to be a communication or something that one person teaches to other, because when it reaches the enough amount of people, it's part of the collective consciousness and everybody is going to learn it. So the Martians decide that they were going to create a Merkaba to control these lines, to control the thoughts and the emotions of our species. And when they tried to do it, they made a great catastrophe, something that had an impact interdimensional and extratemporal, something that is still impacting us, that we are still releasing karma of that experiment with a synthetic Merkaba that they tried to do at that moment to gain control. Because what they wanted was to continue their evolution without the love. So it was the second time that they tried to perform something like this without being natural, without being with the unity consciousness. And what happened was a rupture of 97 kilometers in the area of the Bermuda Triangle. Actually, the Bermuda Triangle is an area where we still have the lag of the remainings of this experiment, of what happened here. It is a place where the magnetism of Earth is completely different to the rest of the world. It is a place where the planes fly and they completely get lost, where the ship disappeared, where the people that just go and die there lose their memory or become crazy because the magnetism alters the brain. So it is the lack of this experiment. In the Cuban findings, they were saying, for the Atlantis and all this, they were saying that they found a pyramid, but it is not a pyramid. It is a Merkaba, which is the two triangles, the shape that I just showed you, in order to control the grid. But instead of being able to control the grid, what they did was that they broke it, that they opened a hole on it. And when they opened this hole here, they completely damaged all what the different people here in Atlantis were building, where we were storing all our evolution, what we were learning, what we were doing. And this created a second grid. In energy, every time that we are a step farther in evolution, it is like an octave up or an octave lower. And this is the Great Fall. Here is what happens, the Great Fall, because we went an octave down. So we changed from that grid to a grid on the third dimension, not in the fifth dimension anymore, not a grid of unconditional love, but a grid of duality. This is what happened. This is the Great Fall. This had many consequences. So this great catastrophe that happened in the Bermuda Triangle, that it is between the isles of Bermuda, Puerto Rico, and Florida, where we still have the lag of all this. It didn't really happen only here on Mother Earth. Here, many species disappeared. It was a completely environmental disaster and many things, as we're going to see. But additionally, it happened in many other parts of the space of the universe, because remember that we are all connected. We have a fake illusion that if it happens just here, it doesn't happen to you or anything. But no, it's like the butterfly effect, that if it moves the wings here, it's going to create a tornado or a massive wing in Japan. Well, something similar happened. This fake Merkaba, or this experiment, caused the extinction of whole alien races, caused the extinction of planets, the destruction of other galaxies outside. And that's why many beings outside our planet, they don't like humans. We are considered ignorant and we are considered dangerous. And that combination is very bad, not only for us, but for the whole galaxy, for the species, for the planet, for the order, for the cycles. So many beings have tried to destroy this planet, like the Greys, for example. But all that information has been kept secret by the government. We are not a race, let's say, that it is welcome in the other realms because what we have done and because we are weak. We have been controlled, and because we have been controlled, we have not recuperated our inner power and the connection with the source, which was the beginning of the experiment that the Galactic Council wanted to do here. That fake Merkaba created an environmental disaster. So it was not only the explosion, but also everything that happened in the different dimensions. What happened with the people here? The people started living in a survival mode. And what I have, this picture that you see here are like the 7 scenes. What means the survival mode? The survival mode means that I live so much in fear, and instead of looking for the source, I am going to look for other things to cover that emptiness, that hole that I have inside. So for example, I'm going to go and eat more, the gluttony, or I want to keep more things, like greedy, or like everything has to be mine in case I have a lack of something. So we completely lose the capacity of trust in the universe, that the universe and the source will provide everything. We lost that, we were in fear. So we need to grab the things for myself. Remember that we were already left brain oriented.